Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today, Enterprise BI Portals, the heart and soul of a BI program. I'm very happy to have you here. And before we get started, just want to touch on a few housekeeping notes. So please use the Q&A window to submit any questions. And of course, chat window if you want to talk to our admin. And then we will send a slide deck and recording to all registered attendees at the end as a follow-up. So with that, I want to just let you know who's going to be on the webinar. So I am Marius Moscovici. I'm the CEO of Metric Insights. We are a company that makes BI portals, which is one of the subjects of the webinar. And today I'm joined by Wayne Eckerson, who is the president of Eckerson Group. And those of you who do not know Wayne, he has a, wait, go back there. Yeah. Wayne has been around in the business intelligence space for a very long time. He's been around over 25 years, has had, provided thought leadership in many capacities. He's currently the leader of the Eckerson Group, but before that, he served TDWI and provided lots of innovative research for TDWI, as well as the training and many other things there. And Wayne is also an author of 2 excellent best-selling books. So, as well as presents in many different formats and has lots and lots of different articles and reports that he's published. So he's definitely a great thought leader in our space, and we're very, very happy to have him here today presenting his thoughts with us. So with that, Wayne, let me turn it over to you, and you can continue.
Thank you, Marius. Thank you for that generous introduction. Yes, after 30 years, you write a lot of articles and reports, and even a few books thrown in there. So a lot of people know Eckerson Group and me from our research, but fewer may know that we also have a consulting division and an advisory division. Advisory provides consulting to software vendors, and the consulting, which is half our business, provides consulting to user organizations like yourselves. We provide a lot of different capabilities, as you can see here. And we're a bunch of white-haired guys, been doing this for a long time. We added it up over 200 years of data and analytics experience between us. So if you need some veterans who've seen everything to help you move your program along, give us a call. And these are some of the companies that we've worked with recently. Okay, so this topic, BI portals, is near and dear to my heart. I've been talking about the need for a BI portal for a very long time. It seems to me that you really can't run a BI program effectively without one, both from the user perspective and the BI administrator perspective. So we're going to talk about both of those. But first, why don't you get out a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil. We're going to take a little self-assessment here. We're going to chart your analytics pain points. So I'm going to present you with 5 statements on this slide and 5 statements on the next slide. And if they're true, I want you to give yourself 1 point. Okay, just give yourself a little scratch mark on your piece of paper, and at the end we'll tally up your scratch marks and see where how much analytic pain your organization is in. Okay. All right, so statement number 1, we have too many reports, most of which are no longer used. So if that's true or mostly true, give yourself 1 point. Number 2, we have too many reports with conflicting data and rules. Again, if that's true, give yourself a point. Number 3, business users don't trust the data or the reports that contain the data or the dashboards. And when I say reports today in this presentation, I really mean reports, paginated reports, or more likely dashboards of some sort. Number 4, we have too many BI tools. The industry's gotten a lot better at this over the years. When we first started tracking that, it was more like 10 to 12. Now we're down to 2 or 3. But what is it in your organization? And maybe perception is the rule here. So if you have too many in your perception, give yourself a mark. And 5, business users must use different BI tools to see different reports. Or if they only use one BI tool, they only can see certain reports and not all the reports they might want or need to see. All right, so keep a track. We're going to go one more slide, 5 more statements. Number 6, business users don't know which reports to use because there's too many typically, and they conflict. Number 7, business users can't find the right report or don't know that some reports exist, like we just said. Number 8, BI and data teams are deluged with requests for custom reports. Number 9, business users make decisions by gut feel rather than data because they can't find the right reports or the right reports don't exist. And finally, 10, most BI tool licenses are unused or underutilized. Okay, so 10 opportunities to score points. Of course, in this situation, more points is not necessarily a good thing. And here's the rating. If you scored between 0 and 3 points, I would say you have minimal analytic pain. Certainly, there is room for improvement there, obviously. But if you have 4 to 7, you have moderate analytic pain, and there's probably some pressing things that you need to do, like probably install a BI portal, as we'll define it in a second. And if you're in real pain, bending over backwards or bending over double, time to do something. And I think a BI portal might solve a lot of these issues. Okay, so if you're the director of a BI program or managing a BI program and have responsibility for the adoption of BI tools and reports and dashboards, among other things out there, I suspect you're afflicted with these challenges, some of which we've already addressed, but let's just review these here. You may have report sprawl. So a lot of underutilized or unused reports that need to be consolidated to simplify user access. You may have deployed a tool, a BI tool, a self-service tool, and you're scratching your head wondering why more users aren't using it. You've got too many tools through mergers and acquisitions or autonomous departments who kind of go do their own thing without central alignment. And this causes escalated costs in terms of support and management on your end. Dueling reports, those are when business users come to an executive meeting, each armed with their own spreadsheet or other BI tool report, and no one agrees on what things mean. BI team or the data team is a bottleneck to getting things done, to giving users what they need, whether it's a report or a data set, if it's an analyst doing the requesting. Do you have a bottleneck where things are slowing down and users are getting frustrated and perhaps considering, if not already, resorting to getting data through the back door? Here's a big one, lack of report standards. So you have a lot of reports, but none of them are really governed and no one knows which is the official report. You really don't know who's using which BI tools or accessing which reports and running which queries. BI is literally a blind spot that, if you're not careful, could really do some harm. And then finally, executives are looking at the spend on your area and realizing or not recognizing what value they're getting from it. And of course, that's a career limiting potential idea in the thoughts of executives, which you don't want to give them any room to think of those along those lines. So if these are your challenges, listen on. I think the remedy for a lot of these, as I already suggested, is an enterprise BI portal. So what is that really? It's from a business user perspective, it's one place to go to get any report from any BI tool and to be able to search at a very deep level for those reports and understand at a very deep level through metadata what's in those reports. For an administrator, well, here's some of the things. One place to go for reports, search across all BI tools. The portal is personalized by role, department, and even individual. So what you see, at least on the home screen, is tailored to you. So you only see what you really need and want. You can view metadata for each report, as I said. You can sequence the way you view reports one after another to support a business workflow. You can request locked assets. In other words, if you search for a report and it says you can't have it, well, at least you know it's there, and then maybe you can, through the portal, request access and permission to use it. Drill through to source data. So the portal is one place to go. It doesn't have the actual report, but you can use the report there. You basically drill through into the report through the portal. So you really never leave the portal. The applications and the BI tools just appear inside of it and work inside of it. And last, you can define alerts based on any of the metrics and any of the reports in your portal. So that's pretty good for a business user. You know, it's no fuss, no muss, one place to go to get information they need. For our administrators, it's also one place to go to manage any report and any BI tool. So track usage across tools, not just for an individual tool, because you can do that within each tool, but you can't do it across tools. That's what you need a BI portal for. You can identify duplicate reports, not just within one tool or created by one tool, but created by multiple tools. Identify gaps in reporting as a result. You can also certify and manage reports and attach a little seal of approval to start to govern this sprawl that you might have and make some headway in cleaning it up. Create governance workflows to do that standardization. Assess the impact of changing a report. Through the portal, you can see who is actually using it, and if you change it or delete it or rename it, who's going to be impacted. You can import metadata from other tools like data catalogs into the BI portal and add that to the portal's metadata to give your users a 360-degree view of that report. It's pretty cool. And finally, you should be able to measure the value that your organization is getting in dollars and cents using the portal. So it can add up the cost of all the licenses and divide that by the adoption by business users and give you some kind of an ROI. Also pretty cool. So you can begin to now quantify and justify the value of your BI program. That is really cool stuff. So let me give an example of a company that's using a BI portal. This company is Truist. It was formed in 2019 from the merger of BB&T and SunTrust. It's based down in Charlotte, North Carolina. So after the merger, they had 12 BI tools. And as you can imagine, users couldn't find the right reports, which was of utmost concern, especially right during the merger and right after, as people were trying to consolidate assets and establish new processes. And the BI team really didn't know who was using what and really couldn't provide any guidance to the organization about this massive reports that now were available to people, and certainly didn't know how to restrict access to those reports as well when needed. So Truist realized that, fortunately, that it needed a BI portal, and that would clean up a lot of the issues it was facing, both from a BI user perspective and an administrator perspective. Now with the portal, they're able to track usage by tool, by department, and user. So in other words, they know what's going on, and they can be much more proactive in servicing the community with their information needs. They've been able to, thanks in part from this portal and the usage tracking, they could tell which tools are actually being used heavily, and they were able to standardize down from 12 to 3 BI tools. For users, made it much easier to search for reports across the combined enterprise. From an administrator perspective, also, you can basically enables you to abstract the BI tools users really don't need to know as much anymore which tool has generated the report, because they just go to the portal, they see a metric or a report that they want, and they click on it. And behind the scenes, the tool opens up and they see the data. But if an administrator wants to change the tool that generated that report, they can do so, and most users wouldn't even know. Also pretty cool. And then finally, easier to justify decommissioning reports because they're tracking who's using what or who's not using which report, and which reports therefore are easily turned off without serious repercussions. So at this point, I'm going to talk a little bit about business user functionality, most of which I've already mentioned. So I'll show you a few quick screenshots, and then Marius is actually going to demo a BI portal for you so you can see what it looks like. And hopefully you can save up your questions, because very quickly we'll be at the Q&A section of this webinar, and we can dive into details about what a BI portal can do for your organization. So just very quickly, here's a screenshot of a typical portal homepage. It looks like a portal. In this case, though, all the objects are BI objects, typically reports or dashboards, very nice little thumbnails. On the left-hand side, there's on the sidebar, you can click on various things to get different views of those thumbnails. You can click on your favorites view. Those are things that you've saved for yourself. There's departmental views and enterprise views, and so on and so forth. Most of which I can't see because my screen that I'm looking at is really too small. But there is up here in each thumbnail, you can see there's a little eye, right, in a dark circle. If you click on that eye, for that report, you can then open up the metadata, and this is what it might look like. And Marius, I'm sure we'll dive into some detail here. You can see there's a rich set of metadata about this report that gives users all the coordinates they need to understand, who created this, what does it contain, and basically, is this trustworthy? Is this what I need to answer my questions? And even at the bottom, you see Elation down there. So it's imported metadata from the Elation data catalog. So really providing a true 360-degree view of this report's metadata. So that's pretty cool too. And finally, there's this search bar. So this is really cool. Users can search across all the BI tools and all the reports in the enterprise and come up with hits based on relevance. Now, if they click on one of the objects, and they may not actually be able to access that and pull it up and start interacting with it because of permissions, right? But that's great because the portal can provide some level of access control across all of your BI tools and reports. And if it's a good tool, it can also enable users to request permission to access that report and go through a provisioning process. So those are just a few business user functions and features. And now I'm going to turn it over to Marius to give us a little demo of this stuff, business user functionality.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Wayne. Let me go ahead and show you the business user functionality using kind of metric insights as an example for what portal capabilities you should be looking for. So here's this is very much sort of the kind of page that Wayne was showing, where you've got these tiles. Each tile represents a particular piece of content you have, and on the left-hand side, you've got the ability to, different things like your favorites. You've got maybe recommendations for you, content recommendations, maybe a hierarchy of content within a particular set of folders, and so forth, right, for this particular user. And you'll notice right away a few things just to kind of highlight that are important. You want to be able to have the portal as a mechanism to communicate to all your users. So like Wayne said, you might have multiple BI tools, lots of users in your organization, and sometimes there's an issue. Maybe there's an issue with data pipelining or something of that nature. The portal, in addition to giving you a one point of access or one pane of glass for all of your different analytics. Also gives you a way to be able to communicate with your users about any issues or anomalies or changes or things that are happening within your environment. And then also you'll notice looking at this that, sometimes I've got this I, but sometimes I've got this little checkbox here that says that, and that's a certification mark. So one of the things Wayne talked about that's a big challenge is oftentimes maybe multiple reports out there, but unless you as a user know, is this report certified? Does it tie with all the other content? Who's certified and who can I hold accountable to it? That kind of capability, that's a very important portal enablement capability. So here you can see that this is bronze certified. So you can have, in this case, gold, bronze, silver certification. They can mean different things. You can see who certified it, when it was certified, and some of that critical metadata around how it's tagged and who's the owner, data steward, with the data source, and anything else this is all customizable. Anything else that's relevant to your organization when they're looking at metadata that does two things. Promotes good governance in the sense that I know what I'm looking at, and supports literacy, right? Because if the more I know about what I'm looking at, the more data literate I am, the more I know whether this is something that's actually useful to me or not. And again, the same idea. If I click here, I should be able to I'm seeing this metadata in a larger format, as well as maybe some analyst commentary that was made for this particular dashboard that provides proper necessary context. And then from here, I can click through and then work with that particular content the same way that I would natively within the environment. So this happens to be a Tableau dashboard, but it really doesn't matter what kind of a BI tool you have. The experience will be the same. So as Wayne said, as a user, I shouldn't have to care whether this is Power BI or Tableau or Cognos or something else that the data science team whipped up with Python. It should just be exactly the same experience. And then I just come in, I have my metadata up here, I have a description, I have certification information, I have issues, any kind of issues associated with data quality highlighted for users so that, it's proactive. You don't get as a user, I don't have to call the IT department to find out why this doesn't have the right data. It tells me, hey, there's a problem here. The data is delayed, which all feeds into that whole alerting mechanism that Wayne talked about. So all that is essentially available to the user at a glance. And then also, if you do this kind of tagging that we're showing here, you might be able to click here and see, what are the definitions of these tags? If I've tagged this as sales, what does it mean? Maybe this data comes from Elation or Calibra or a spreadsheet or something, or you load it directly into Metric Insights. The idea is one way or another, whether it's sourced in the portal or whether it is sourced from some other tool, you want to have the kind of metadata that help users understand what's happening with their data and what's happening with this, and what are the key terms this is measuring, what do they mean, etc. Another key capability up here, you can see you've got commentary at the bottom, right? So I should be able to have sort of discussion and collaboration around that content that at the surfaces, and then I ought to be able to do things like even collect feedback, right? So if I want to, one of the key challenges as you build reports, which ones continue to be useful, which ones are less useful over time. The only way to manage that is to continuously see not only what people are clicking on, how are people voting with their actions, but get the qualitative feedback. Here you can see kind of an NPS score collection where I can say, oh, this is a pretty good dashboard, and I can provide the feedback to the engineer that built it and say, would love to see marketing data added as well. Right. So just I can be prompted periodically to submit feedback. It's as easy as doing that. And now that's all centrally collected for everyone. Right. So that's essentially the idea. Right. And if you look at all of this content, irrespective of type, as we said, is the same. So same idea. I've got various different types of BI tools here, Tableau, Power BI, etc. But I could also have a spreadsheet in there. It could be there could be things that are built by by somebody external to me, like an Excel spreadsheet or something they shared with me, or Shiny application, or anything else that's built by the data science team. And then as Wayne said, there should be the ability to search across all my content. So this is kind of a Google style search, right? You've got suggestions for things you might want to look at. If I type sales analysis in here and I look for that, as a user, I should be able to see, what content do I have that matches that across all the different BI tools that I have. I should be able to see the information here about that, metadata, preview images if they're applicable. Here I've got a PDF file, etc. And then provide filtering by everything from the tags that I've used. Let me find everything that has the tag with cost, things that have the highly rated, things that my peers have said were good, and then even looking at engagement, right, and saying I want things that have a higher engagement level, or so any number of things. So just quickly narrow my search down to find the things that are relevant to me, and then go ahead and click through to take a look at that. Or another example, like Wayne said, if I am searching for something, so I'm looking for let's look at what I have for procurement. Well, maybe what I find here is that there's a dashboard here, but I don't have access to it yet, but I can access the metadata. And then when I click on this lock, then I'm prompted, as Wayne described, to then initiate an access request process that either goes to a ServiceNow ticket, opens a ServiceNow ticket, or in some cases could even automatically provision access for that through an approval process managed by the portal. So creating an ecosystem where all that content is there, I can discover content, I can request access, I can find it, and I can consume it in a way that's seamless. That's really what the user experience is all about. And then finally, the last sort of thing I would mention as a key sort of value add that a portal should provide is that you want to be able to, once you've added the content to the portal, to create these mashups to support user workflows, right? The value add of putting it all together isn't just that you don't have to have bookmark a whole bunch of links. It's that my workflow as a user is substantially improved by virtue of having it here. And I'll give you two quick examples of ways in which you can improve workflow. So one might be just as simple as creating a welcome page. A portal can have a landing page apart from the catalog that says, here's my, welcome page. I have resources right at my disposal here, but I'm not overwhelmed with a bunch of content. I'm just presented with, 4 places I can go, look at my favorites, look at sales reports, look at market reports, and look at how my KPIs are performing. And the idea being, if I click on one of these, now I'm presented with an opportunity to just quickly flip through all the things that, let's say, maybe I've added to my favorites, or the particular content that I've added. Of course, that just looking at it like this and saying, okay, I want to look across the different pieces of content. I can flip through them, and I don't need to go back in and out of tools to be able to support that waste a lot of time going in and out. So that's an example of how simple workflow automation can help, where these are just driving either based on my favorites or based on a set of folders that have been curated for me. Another example of that would be something like this country overview, right? Where I froze here. 1 second, sorry. All right, Wayne, maybe I'll send it back to you because my browser is frozen for some reason.
Okay.
So why don't you let's do?
Yeah.
Now I'm back.
We're getting some great questions. So based on that functionality, please ask away, and we'll address those.
Actually,
order here.
It looks like my browser woke back up. I think it's a bandwidth issue. But you go ahead, and I'll cover that later on.
Yeah, you come back on. We're going to do one more round of demos here in a second. Yeah. So we just went through the user functionality, and now we're going to focus a little bit more on the administrator functionality. Here's a screenshot that you'll see Maris talking about usage. Very comprehensive set of usage statistics that's completely filterable. So it can really help you understand, how people are using which tools and which reports, so you can optimize the program and the spend on those kinds of things. Marius mentioned certifying reports, and he's going to show you, I think, a workflow that's very customizable that you can use to step through the process of certifying reports and dashboards, and then attaching that little mark to them, as he showed you, and we'll see again. Here's a sample workflow that one company put together. And then finally, I guess this is still report governance, right? Maris, what am I looking at here?
Well, you're looking
Unfortunately,
at
it's so small on my screen, I can't see it now.
no worries. You're just looking at the custom metadata fields. I think you've touched base on that already, that there's the ability to kind of
Okay, yeah,
include all the custom metadata around
yeah,
the content.
yeah, it's a problem with these, sharing the screen here.
So
Should have
let's
got my
try,
glasses.
let's see if I'll go
All
ahead
right,
and share my screen, and we'll kind of show you the, well, first of all, let me show you this part, because I was having some problems with my browser, but this is another example of a mashup, right? So here you've got all of the, I've got 4 different pieces of content from different reports all together. So this is often an issue, right? If you think about kind of what Wayne described, as a user, if I've got lots of reports that I want to be able to use, sometimes maybe I don't want to have to go between them, back and forth. What I want is a particular visualization, one visualization, key visualization from a Tableau dashboard, another one from a Power BI dashboard, another one from a separate Power BI dashboard, maybe something else. And I want to be able to sort of explore those together in a way where I can just, guide the analysis, pick a particular filter value, and then filter all of them together all in one shot, right? So this is an example of kind of the kinds of workflow improvement that Wayne suggested that's possible once you bring everything into a portal, because it's all unified under a single pane of glass. Then you can create this kind of mashup experience where then I can see these at a high level, and then of course, if I'm interested in exploring further, I can click on this, and then I can go into the detailed analysis for that particular visualization, where I can do my deep dive. But I didn't, this.
I hadn't seen that before, where you actually can sequence together piece parts from different reports. That is really cool, because I know a lot of users complain to us when we go and consult that, yeah, the information I need is in 5 different dashboards, and I got to go, every 2 weeks and pull the data from each dashboard and put into a spreadsheet, which is a huge waste of time, right? But
Yeah.
now you get it on one screen.
Yeah, no, that's right, and it's basically a big time saving. If you, so it's really all about kind of creating workflows like that help you really get, save time, and that's really the value add to users. I mean, and as you said, Wayne, there's really 2 parts of the equation, right? There's, to the users, the portal is, I can find my content, I can search for it, I can request access, I can have mashups that combine everything for me together in a single place. I can bubble up the KPIs and metrics that are relevant to me and see those there. And then for an admin, the value add is different. It's all about sort of governance, right? And it's about being able to understand, have a mechanism by which you can onboard the right content, so that you're not sitting there with tons and tons of obsolete duplicative content. And if you think about it, right, these things in your ecosystem today, if you're one of the people that when Wayne asks, do I have a lot of reports that are obsolete, is there duplicates? If you said yes to that, it didn't just sort of happen overnight. These really messy environments that are so common in BI infrastructures these days, they occurred over time because there was really no way for effective governed way for content to get included in those things. In other words, content gets added and it's never removed. Right, so that's one fundamental problem, right? Maybe there's some half-hearted effort to do spring cleaning once a year, but really, in the end of the day, it's very hard to pull content out, because it's not. If you're an analyst, it's not the content you built. You're not 100% sure if somebody might be using it. It's much easier to save as a version of a report and modify it so that than it is to kind of get everyone in the room and figure out if the changes that you want to make to a particular report are going to break anything else that people are doing. So because of that, over time, all of this content gets, 3 to 4 or 5 or 10 versions of report get created. And then there's nobody that is monitoring the usage and engagement of those reports over time to be able to say, oh, you know what, I noticed that this report that was really hot and popular a year ago now is really not getting in usage at all. And maybe that's because we've changed some things in the business, so this report isn't relevant anymore. Let me just go ahead and deprecate that and remove it out, so that now somebody new to the organization doesn't stumble across some obsolete piece of content and start making decisions and inferences off of things that are no longer accurate, right? So you can keep that environment really clean and pristine. And so to do that, you need kind of 2 pieces. You need that governance piece where you bring the content on through a publishing process, and you need to track engagement, right? So let's look at kind of both of those pieces, as Wayne talked about. So this is an example here of a publishing workflow, right? So the idea being you don't want everything in your BI environment to be in the portal, right? Because if you do that, you're just moving the mess from your BI repository into your portal repository. What you want is to be able to say, okay, I've got all this content. I want to move it, automatically sync with it, bring it into a pending review status, and then have a very simple mechanism by which the report publisher can go in and promote it to become published, potentially certified, and add all of that necessary metadata that will make it easy to consume. So for example, you might come in here and say, okay, I've got this Power BI report. And this is something I want to be able to promote and move over to my make available to my users. So I can come over here and I can move it to take a look at what the metadata, and I can move it into the in review status, right? So that's just as simple as doing that. And then once it's been moved, now if anything it's been moved, I can just go in here and either the same person or some other person, whoever's responsible for kind of reviewing it, can easily click in here and say, let me edit this. I can add any necessary metadata. So obviously you're going to bring on all the metadata you have from the underlying tool automatically. But if you have to add tags, if you want to associate sort of custom metadata, classification information, put in a folder, add documentation, whatever it is that you want to do, can just be handled with a few clicks in this here. And then again, you might move this into and when you say, well, this is ready to go, into a published and certified state. And only once it's been published and certified, now it's going to get that bronze certification, because this workflow provides that support. It's going to be visible in search. It's going to be visible in that catalog. So that's an example. Just a few clicks. You can even collaboratively, you could have that publishing process happen for a simple asset. And then if you have, maybe a more complex assets or things that require like lots of different steps, maybe things that are like your financial reports that you're going to share with Wall Street, and there you want to make sure that these things go through many steps of review. You can have a much more complex workflow with many people involved. Each person is notified when something goes into their stage, and they come in and they can add the particular metadata that's relevant for them. They can certify that content and move it forward. And you can even have this attestation phase where every single periodically, every 6 months, the things that have been certified automatically drop into an attestation phase, where then you can come in and say, this is still good. I'm reattesting this metadata is good. This report is good. So you have a whole grooming process to keep things fresh, right? So that's the sort of governance piece of it. And then the engagement piece that Wayne talked about is also very important. And that here this is what tells you, what's working, what's not working, what should I do to really improve the user experience. So here you want to be able to understand obviously your overall user engagement across your BI tools, but see who are the sort of key users and so forth. But you also want to be able to sort of zero in on content. And this is an example of how you can kind of take a content view of things and see, well, what content is popular? What's increasing in popularity? What's most popular? What's not used at all? These are things that either I got to promote these things, or I should deprecate them, right? Because they're just sitting there taking up space. People are running into them. It's clutter and nobody's really looking at them. And what's decreasing in popularity? And so the ability to do that and to slice it across different data sources and categories and business groups, et cetera. And then not only that, but to be able to say, well, for a particular item here, I should also be able to see kind of a time-lapse view of how that usage is taking place, right? So what you're seeing here, kind of an animation with these rings representing 1 day, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And as things are drifting out, those are users that looked at that content, but did not come back to it. So this gives you kind of a sense of the stickiness associated with that content. This content is being used every single day, by these people, and then this group, they took a look at it and they didn't find it very compelling. So understanding kind of over time what's happening, very important. And then as a content publisher, of course, also very important, is to be able to say, well, when I'm looking at a particular report, right, that I've set up, I should be able to come back and take a look and see what is all the information about that. So let me go back here so you get the context. So if I'm here at the if I go to my catalog and I want to understand, what's happening for particular reports. Maybe I'm the author of the sales analysis page, so I have edit access to it. If I could click the edit gear and I go behind the scenes, I have an engagement tab where now I can see what's the engagement for this content over time. I can see, wow, I had pretty good engagement and then all of a sudden it dropped off. Maybe something's going on there. I need to investigate. I can see what's my overall NPS score. So, look at this. I've got a negative NPS score. Yeah. And compared to like the average for the portal is 28 positive NPS. And this is a negative 33. That's not great. I got a lot of negative feedback. And I can read whether, if for those cases where the folks provided feedback, who provided it, how much did they score it, and what did they tell us? What did it tell me about this? So I've got all the tools at my disposal to figure out, what is it that I should do to improve my content? What other content do people find useful without having to go through the process of, generating a customer survey and sending it out and getting a focus group together and doing things that, frankly, analysts just don't have time to do. Right? This just feedback collection just happening behind the scenes in the background. And it's a tool that as a user can, as a content publisher, as an administrator, can consult on a regular basis to make sure that I'm doing the right things to really maximize engagement, to get value out of those tools, that maximize license usage, etc. So with that, let me hand it back to you, Wayne, to see if there's anything else you wanted to say, and then we probably go to the Q&A section and see. It looks like we've got a few questions.
Yeah, a lot of good questions. Keep them coming, people. We're going to get there in just 1 second. I think a lot of the stuff here is we've already talked about. So I'm not going to dwell on this. When you get one of these things, which, by the way, I hope you're convinced now that you can't really run a good BI program without one of these. I really don't know how you would do it, to be honest. There's such a incredibly useful asset that everyone should have one. Although I'm sure, Marius, my first question to you would be, what is the ideal or prototypical customer of yours who are buying these things? What are there any particular pain points they're using these for? Although, as I said, I think everyone should have one, especially if they have more than one BI tool. Yes, the number one recommendation, consider implementing an enterprise portal. If your company has multiple BI tools or is afflicted with report sprawl. I guess I just answered my own question. Marius, I think you might want to elaborate on that.
Sure.
2, roll out an enterprise BI portal one department at a time. Yeah, you don't want to boil the ocean here. Get some experience with one department using it. How do you tailor it to them? Make sure you recruit a champion in each unit who can coordinate the implementation and tailor the home pages to their colleagues, so at least they have a running start on customizing it for themselves. And then make sure, even though these tools are very, as you can see, pretty brain dead simple, make sure you provide enough training and handholding to get business users used to the idea of going one place to access any and all BI reports and dashboards. That, in fact, that was one of the questions, Marius, so maybe we can start there is, how do you, people have all these links. Yeah. How do you stop it if all people from using bookmarks for reports and dashboards and force them, quote unquote, to use the portal?
Yeah.
That is a good question, because ultimately any technology implementation is all about managing change. So I'd love to hear what you have to say to that one.
Yeah, I would say I don't know that you can't force people, because obviously if you're going to have access to the tool, we're embedding the thing that they have access to, and kind of turning off the link to that is not. I mean, there may be some technical ways to do that, but it's generally not done that way. I would say the way to think about this is, if you're implementing a portal, you can drive adoption by virtue of the value added it provides. So, the things that we talked about there, the ability to search, the ability to group things, content together, the ability to have more context when you're looking at things, the ability to do those mashups and things of that nature. That's what keeps people coming back to the portal. They'll go to the portal initially to find content, but then they'll return to the portal and consume things through the portal continuously because of the value add that's there through the other functionality that we talked about. The other thing that you can do, however, from a policy perspective, and we do have customers that do this. I know, for example, there's customers that will go in and say, it's a company policy due to governance requirements. You need to consume things through the portal, because that's where you can then be able to see, which content contains PII data and what's the data sensitivity and classification of the information, things of that nature. And if you do set an enterprise policy around that, then what you can do, and we have customers customers doing this, you can look at we can combine the engagement data that we pull directly from the BI tools with our engagement data and identify those pockets in the organization where for some reason people are not using the portal. And those users you can then do outreach to, remind them gently that it is an enterprise policy, and find out if there's a reason why they're not using the portal. Maybe their content's not all there. Maybe the different content needs to be onboarded, right? So there's definitely a process by which you can over time increase more and more and get close to the 100% compliance around using that. But it isn't really like some kind of a switch you can throw in a BI tool to say, no, you can only come to this in the portal. At least we haven't seen it that way. Done that.
Yeah, well, that was a great answer. But on my initial question, which goes to the number one recommendation here, other than multiple BI tools and report sprawl, is there any typical characteristics of your customers and why they come to you?
Yeah, I think that it's a sense of, apart from the having just multiple like tools and reports, it's just a sense that they're not really getting the kind of return on investment on their BI spend. When they're looking at their usage of licensing, and it's like, geez, we're spending, I've got 1,000 users that I've given Tableau and Power BI license to. When I actually look at who's using it, maybe, we had a customer that somebody came to us that 10% of their licenses were being used, and oftentimes 40-50% is not unusual. And that's a huge sort of, not only is that a waste of money in terms of the fact that, there's spend on expensive licenses that are not being utilized, but it's a huge opportunity cost, right? So it's that problem, Wayne, where people are coming to us because they're doing a digital transformation initiative. They're trying to get the culture to become more digitally, more focused around metrics and data, and they recognize that the only way to do that is to create an engaging user experience around that content.
Okay.
So it's not, which is not necessarily has to be multiple BI tools. With their customers that we have that just still have a single BI tool, but they want a much more engaging experience for the users.
Okay. Any suggestions for a BI portal software for nonprofits, agencies with a tight budget? We have the same issues listed under BI director challenges, but limited resources to address them. You give your product away for free, Marius?
We don't unfortunately, we can't afford to give it away for free. So it is something you have to, obviously budget is a factor, and you've got to look at there are different alternatives. There's, you can try to build some of your own solutions. Those are not cheap either. There are sorts of limited, people try to use things like SharePoint and things like that to create at least the landing places. Unfortunately, it's just one of those things that to get the full features of the capability, you get what you pay for, kind of a thing. And that, so if you have a fairly small number of assets and you have something very simple, then you could look at very basic solutions like SharePoint. Those don't really scale well to thousands of users or hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of pieces of content, but they do work on a small scale as a starter if you're in a situation where you just can't afford to really invest in paid software for that.
Or I suppose the other option is just say, we're only going to use one BI tool. Then you get a good portion of the benefits. What do you think?
Yeah, if you standardize on your BI tool, then you don't have the issue of having to go to different places. But the reality is that even for those organizations that standardize the BI tools, there are still assets that they want to govern, like Excel spreadsheets. There's that financial model that somebody sends around once a month, and it's being sent around via email, and it's ungoverned, and nobody knows where the latest version is of that, etc. So you want to still have some place to. And even if you have a single BI tool, you're still going to develop clutter in that environment over time. So you still need that process of saying not everything that some analyst published, 3 years ago should still be accessible to my users. And so,
and being able to certify reports and put a little seal on it has a huge change agent capability to it.
That's right.
It really transforms culture when people, they start looking for that little watermark, and they won't use anything that doesn't have it. So that is a huge benefit for these types of tools. All right, next question. What process and how does the product tool help with the audit of analytics assets, parentheses, metadata, in transition from heritage BI landscape to enterprise BI portal? I guess if you're, did you understand that one?
I think I understand what they're saying. They're saying, you've got you've got a set of analytics assets, and you want to try to look at the metadata there, and you want to try to figure out, what are you going to move, what are you going to not move, and kind of
Right.
transition
How do you
environment.
migrate all the stuff that
How do you
you've
do that?
accumulated over decades into the portal, right?
Yeah, so we typically say, we start with usage stats. So we connect to the most major BI tools, and we can get the usage stats from there, and we look at, what is being used, and those are usually the things that you want to start migration. If it's in your BI tool and it's not being used, there's no point in using it. So that's the first step. Metadata, you pull all available metadata, usually ownership and name, sometimes description, things like that, tags. Sometimes they can come from BI tool, depending upon what your heritage BI tool is. If it's available via the API, we kind of ingest that, and then it's supplemented as part of the onboarding process, either through that workflow mechanism that I showed, or through an automated sync process. So, we have some customers that maintain Excel spreadsheets, where there's just an Excel spreadsheet, somebody responsible for that area tracks and captures all the metadata for those reports that are going to be onboarded, and then it just gets synced up automatically through a load process. So in other cases, these things are placed in a Calibra or an Elation or some other internal cataloging system that people use for data. So it's the idea is that wherever you have metadata, you want to be able to connect to it, and the tool should be able to pull it in, merge it all together, and then present it. And then the usage data is probably the biggest driver that helps you figure out, like, what of the content that you already have do you want to promote, and what you want to keep.
Okay. Renee asks, can you add something to the portal without a BI tool having created it? In other words, can you create a SQL query and then attach some kind of GUI to it and add it to the portal that way?
Yeah, absolutely. We have customers putting all kinds of data science models in there, right? So that's another kind of common case. That's, if you think about that, we talked about multiple BI tools. If you have your data science team building a bunch of models and solutions, and they have this the same problem. How do people know where those things are? How do they find them? It's really an analytic, spreadsheets, etc. So you can have all kinds, anything you can link to, you can include in this, as well as, we have customers that use, like, build custom applications using React or any number of technologies, and those things can also be directly integrated into the portal, either through the same viewing experience, or in some cases even can run within the portal environment. So that is definitely possible. So a saved query, like something you may put in Denodo query or something, you can just link to that, and then you can just go there. Users can go there and navigate directly from one place.
Awesome. Jennifer asks, what BI reporting tools do you integrate with? Or maybe it'd be easier, which do you not?
Yeah, I mean, we strive to do all of the major BI tools that are in the marketplace. Everything has an API. So if you have, the Tableau, Power BI, Cognos, MicroStrategy, OBIE, business objects, all the things that you can generally think about, and Looker, all of the so most, it's very few that we don't. Usually, if there is a custom, and also we generally build plugins as they're demanded by customers. So if there's something that we come in and a customer has, like, 5 BI tools, and for some reason there's one tool that we don't support because it's sort of a little more of a esoteric tool, as long as it has an API, we can connect to it pretty quickly. We can build those plugins.
Rick asks an interesting question. Do your usage metrics pick up usage for embedded BI applications? So when a BI tool is embedded in another application?
Yeah, yes, you have if you take the metric insights content that we showed you, we didn't really go into that because it's a little bit more of an edge use case. But oftentimes people take those portals and they want to be able to actually embed them into other solutions that they might have, right? If you have, let's say, a corporate portal that is not just your BI assets, but everything else, you can take a landing page experience that I showed you, and you can embed that into that corporate portal or some website that you have, and then users can use it there, and we track all the usage there. So we track everything that they do through that experience, the fact that they're using that custom experience, as well as if they're clicking on and looking at a particular, say, Tableau or Power BI dashboard within that experience. We're logging all that in usage exactly the same way as if they were using it in the portal. Another example of that is for embedding is, Salesforce, right? Oftentimes, maybe there's a group in your organization that just lives in Salesforce, and that's where they do all their work, and you don't want them to have to go to another portal to get their analytics. You can embed these custom landing pages, the catalog, the classes directly into the Salesforce canvas, and then but we're tracking the usage, the authentication usage, everything works exactly the same way, security and so forth. So yes, it's possible.
Yeah, that was an interesting question, but I think what Rick was asking was, say for instance, Salesforce has Tableau embedded into it, right? Do you track the usage of that Tableau and all the reports that are embedded in Salesforce versus just standalone Tableau?
I understand. So if they use the Tableau embed code directly, then obviously there's no way for us to track that apart from looking at the Tableau metadata, the usage data directly ourselves, which we can do, but we wouldn't be tracking that directly. But if they use a metric insights embed code for that Tableau dashboard, which if you put in the portal, we can give you one of those, then yes, then we would track everything that the fact that they're accessing that object.
Yeah.
So it's all about just using an embed code. It's a mechanic of you need to make sure you use an embed code that permits that.
Metadata integrated with metadata manager tools like Oracle Enterprise Metadata Manager.
Yeah, so we provide integration with any metadata tool you have, and it can be either through APIs as well as through extracts. Just generally pulling metadata out through CSV and consuming it in and connecting up there. So generally connecting with metadata tools is not a problem.
How would we ensure security on the BI portal?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And obviously the last thing you want is to have to sort of do security twice. You've already enabled security on their underlying BI tools. So I think an important requirement, and this is where sort of these very simple solutions, like I mentioned before, that low cost but don't scale well, like a SharePoint, doesn't do this. What you have to do is you want to inherit all of the security permissions. So we do that through integration with Active Directory, as well as Office 365 and all the other sort of centralized security management systems where you have role-based security based on groups. So we synchronize with those, and we can bring the users and the groups associated with that, and then synchronize the categories of content in the portal. We can also synchronize directly with the underlying tools. So for example, we have customers that they don't use Active Directory, but they set up all of their security in Tableau, and we read from the Tableau security model directly, and we synchronize the portal access so that exactly matches what is in Tableau. And by virtue of that, then you don't have to maintain it twice. So that's how security works. Typically, all the things that you have access to in your BI tool, you have access to in the portal. The only difference is you may want to then designate some items that you can't see in your BI tool as discoverable, in which case then people can find them, right? That's the only wrinkle that you have, and that's optional, of course, but that can be done.
All right, I think we're running a little bit out of time. We still got probably more questions than we can get to. It's great, folks. We'll answer your questions afterwards if we don't get to them right now. So the last question, can you customize layouts by role and user?
Yes, and that's very important, right? The whole point is it has to be at least at a role level, because your layout, what we showed you there with the kind of the custom landing page experience, etc., that's suitable to a particular persona that's trying to accomplish a certain thing with the data, right? So you'll absolutely will want to have that customization at the persona level, and then based on the role the user has, which persona they're a part of, they should be guided to the appropriate experience.
Yeah, so I think Marius said we've run out of time. I couldn't find any weaknesses in this product or this whole concept of a BI portal. So I don't usually endorse anything, and I never endorse products. Obviously, this one is a good one, but you guys need to get a BI portal if you have any complexity in your BI environment. So hopefully we've given you a good taste of what they can do for you. I'd recommend that if you want more details and firsthand look, call Marius and he can do a personal demo for you.
Sure.
Mary, I'll give you the last word here.
Thank you. Well, so first of all, thank you, Wayne, for joining us and for sharing your insights. It was really a pleasure and honor to have you on the webinar. And then, thank you everyone for joining us. And we'll definitely reach out for any feedback. And if you have questions to answer questions, but if there's anything we didn't respond to, feel free to reach out through our website or contact me, and we will follow up and respond to any questions. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.